Today we're introducing a new feature for K-cycles, lens effect. The main principle for lens effect is to add lens and photographic imperfections to your image. This gives you a more realistic and photographic compared to the perfect and sometimes unrealistically clean computer graphics images. It's the same principle that you would add dirt and noise imperfections to your materials or textures. It'll just give you a more natural look and photographic look to your final render. Great advantages of working with K-cycles lens effect is everything is on the cycles render preview. It's interactive and you get instant feedback as you change your settings for the effects. I have this scene from Monster. It's made by Metin 7. We'll start by enabling right under the K-cycles menu. Starts with tone mapping on. I did some quick adjustments for this scene. On the tone mapping, just increased some of the exposure and the white balance and some of the saturation. If you want more information on that, you can look at my previous tone mapping video. So we select lens and we'll start with looking at each individual setting. We start with distortion, which creates some barrel and pinching effect. Basically, barrel distortion is created by the curved lens, and the center of the image will be more magnified on the edges compared to the edges, and that will, if you look at like a close-up of a portrait, when the camera is really close to the face, you see the faces have a more rounded look as opposed to the cameras much further out. And this can be seen, this rounded look of the portraits can be seen in the selfies. By just selecting the setting, we can go to the right to 0, where it just creates basically the barrel effect, and the center is more curved. And then as you go under 0, you'll see the pinching effect, which is basically the opposite. We'll create a slight amount of barrel effect on this scene to give more of a close-up view and a higher interest to the center. The next step is going to be looking at chromatic aberrations. We have two types, axial and lateral. The axial creates fringing across the whole image. You'll see red and purple. Let me go to the extreme. You can see on the edges of the clothing bed, you'll see the red and purple fringing. Normally it does also gives you some blurriness, so normally I don't use it unless some certain situations where it makes all sense, or I can have a small amount. Lateral creates distortion on the sides of the image. Basically, you'll see the fringing, and you also see some stretching. Demonstrate that for you. Let me go to the extreme. You'll see how on the edges of the image you'll see the fringing. You'll see the red and purple, and the stretching also in the bottom, on the sides. So normally do give a little bit of lateral chromatic variation. In this case, I would basically give it a small amount only, just so to give a better focus to the center of the image. The next step is vignette. Creates a darkening on the sides of the image. Usually it's caused by the wide lens aperture, and it causes the light angle into the lens to be on the sides to be darker than on the center. Let me demonstrate that for you. Normally you have to increase intensity and then also size. So let me go to the extreme, and you can see how as you go down it darkens starting from the side, and the center stays lit properly. Normally a small amount is good, especially this type of thing gives you more interest on the center. So I'll give it a small amount of intensity and size to it. And the last one is film grain. It adds basically a photographic grain or noise on the scene for more natural look, as opposed to the ultra clean, sometimes too clean images that we get after a denoiser. The noise from a render, the noise is not evenly. It will be on a certain area, so it normally is not the best. So the best is do a full denoise and then add some grain across the full image, and you can see how the grain gets across. Normally a small amount of grain will give you a nice natural photographic look. And once you're happy with those settings, you can do a before and after quickly. So definitely there's noticeable change, and just hit F12 for the final render. And now the image is finished, and you can see that it matches exactly what we have in the viewport. Let me show you a quick way to basically reset the settings. All you have to do is just select all the items and enter 0, and that will get you back to the default, as you can see. Hope you enjoyed this video. See you in the next one.